This video will demonstrate how to use the IRC, the Xchat plugin called CWirc to send Morse code with your paddles on programs like Mumble, Voice over IP, WebRTC, things like that. So we've already got it set up to use the serial device. I have a USB to serial port adapter, and that's the code for that to put in here. Here's what I'm using for the keyer settings. And here we go. Test it. Works very, very well. Very accurate timing on this application. And we're using it just to send audio tones from Morse code audio tones over to Mumble, to the Mumble input here. Let's take a look at the settings here. Okay, that's good. I'll go over this in a little more detail in a second here. So to bring up this, you have to use PULSEAUDIO DSP. So PADSP Xchat. Once you bring Xchat up, you connect to a server. So pick any side, I just use this one. So I connect and then disconnect. That brings up the user list buttons. Make sure that's check marked. Then you just click on CWirc. That brings in the plugin right here. And to get low latency, so it's near zero, so you don't notice any delay from tapping your paddle handle until you hear the tone, we're going to use Jack Audio. And that's the connection bay. We're using the PULSEAUDIO Jack sync because if you don't use PULSEAUDIO, you're going to get a error. It's going to say this /dev/DSP/ on both. It's going to say it's an error, can't connect to it. But when you use PULSEAUDIO in this bridge, this will bridge it so that it works, and you'll be able to hear something. So we have the PULSEAUDIO Jack sync from Cadence, which is KX Studio app, and there'll be some notes in the show notes. So we have it set for buffer size 160. That works pretty good on my Realtek HD laptop here. I have an i7 quad core with a Realtek HD audio sound card, and you want to go as low as you can without getting too many X runs. You can tolerate a few here and there, just like you can tolerate some QRN or QRM on the HF, and you can still understand Morse code just fine. It's still a pleasant experience as long as it's not too much. We've been running this for about an hour and still have 0 X runs at this low latency. And at this low latency, I don't hear any delay. I don't notice any delay. There's going to be less than 30 milliseconds in there, and that's considered near 0 latency for the professional music industry. So you can pretty much do that without too much practice on, working with that very, very slight delay. And this is the PULSEAUDIO plugin down here. So PULSEAUDIO is started and bridged, and this is the secret to getting this to work. So now we have 160 samples at 48 with this block latency. If you use PULSEAUDIO by itself, it will be a lot longer than this. You will notice a delay, and it'll make it a lot more difficult to send good CW with your paddles. So we have the paddles hooked to the serial port pins. In the show notes, there's a link to PDF here where it shows you which pins to use. And I just have a very cheap USB to serial port adapter. I've actually just got clip leads connecting to the 3 leads of my paddles. One to ground, and then one to the DTR, the other to the CTS pin and DSR pin. So I think those are the 3 pins we're using. And let's take a look at some of the volumes here in these meters. We're using LV2 plugins here from jalv.select, which is something you can get in Synaptic Package Manager. And it uses jalv.gdk. It just brings up all the LV2 plugins that are on your computer that you've downloaded. I have quite a few here, as you see. Right now I'm just concentrating on the Caf plugins. So we have several here that we're using. You have Spectrum 3D, which I like. It allows me to keep a close monitor on how I'm looking. Now, CWirc sends out a pure square wave, so there's no edge shaping. And let's take a look at that on the oscilloscope plugin. So here's what it looks like. And we're using a filter, the Caf filter. Here's what it looks like without the filter. So that's a pure square wave. And if you'll look over here on the 3D graph, you can see how wide it is. Turn the filter on. So that really cleans it up nice. And you can adjust this as much as possible. You can even make it pretty soft. That's the classic RC shaping that you see in many of the QST articles. So you can adjust this accordingly. There are also other filters you can use that are LV2 plugins. I just like these Caf filters. They do a great job. So we have that set. We've got the filter where we want it. Now we need to set the volume to mumble as well. You want just the right amount of volume so you don't over saturate the mumble input. And if you go above a certain threshold on mumble, it will activate its own AGC circuit, which can distort the CW wave a little bit. And if you're a purist and you don't want that to happen, then you just get under it. And we've, through testing, found that that's just about minus 14.5 dB. So I'm gonna slow this down on the keyer here. We'll go down to 3 and test it here. So look on the very right side here. Get my cursor out of the way. So that's at 14.6. That's good enough. And this is another LV2 plugin that you can select. So that's about the right amount of volume. Now, one of the difficulties that many people have is hearing your own side tone and sending it to mumble input or Skype input or WebRTC input, whatever you're using for your audio over IP program. In Jack Audio, you can draw the lines. This is where CWirc audio comes out right here because it's using PULSEAUDIO. Going to the filter, going to the spectrum monitor, going to the LUFS meter, the oscilloscope. We even have a Caf Meter. Let me show you that real fast here. Caf has a nice two-dimensional. Let's bring this back up. That's what it looks like in 2D, and if we took the filter off, it's going to get a lot wider. And a little harder keying there. Okay. I just wanted to show you the Caf meter here, in case you don't want a 3D meter. Now what's really nice about all this is it doesn't take up much DSP load. We're still at 0 X runs, even running the video software here, which is a simple screen recorder. And I'm using a microphone from an alsa in command to use another USB microphone and bring it in, going through a slight gate right here. And this keeps the background audio from popping in there all the time. We have some fans and the refrigerator grinding in the background here. And let's go back to this screen again. So again, you see a very nicely shaped waveform using these filters. Now the accuracy of CWIRC is really good. I was quite amazed at this. I've been using Wine on Linux to bring in some Windows keys like da-da-da or EHOCW, and there's always some timing glitches. Not too bad, but you know, it's there a little bit, and once in a while you notice a hiccup. I did a test here, sending a stream of DITs, and every one of these is exactly the same length for the DIT and exactly the same time between the DIT. And we just measure that in Audacity by shadowing, left click mouse and hold. And then I have this click to length, and you see it's 51 milliseconds long, and in between every one of those is 47 milliseconds between the DITs. And that's close enough to 50% for normal keying. If you want to change that, you can go into the keyer settings here and change the weight, the DIT weight, and see if you can find a combination there that you prefer. But the default setting is pretty good. Again, since we're not sending on IRC, you don't have to worry about whether this is side tone or not. It still works. And that's another function you can read about if you are sending on CWIRC. But one nice thing about Mumble, this is full, fast, full QSK, full duplex audio, so you can both send at the same time without squashing each other's signal, which is not the way Skype works. So that's one advantage Mumble has. Now on Mumble, I'm using a Jack terminal command called the Jack Load Audio Adapter. And I'm using the alsa sound-a-loop loopback modules. And I have 6 of them that load up every time I reboot. And I'm just using number 4 here for both the input and the output using the audio adapter command. Let me show you that command real fast in case you're interested in trying it. We'll bring up the text editor, and that's how I load that sound-a-loop card. That'll be in the show notes if you want to mess with that. You can also use alsa in or alsa out to bring in the input and output and use different loopback sound cards. But this is very useful. This is just like the virtual audio cables on Windows, only Linux already has them, and you can boot up as many as you like. And I think that's just about all we need to show you here. There's the padsp Xchat command. There's the list of the plugins again, and you just download in your Synaptic Package Manager jov.select. And you can take a look. Now I'm using the KX Studio repos, the KX Studio default settings, and the KX Studio scripts. All that'll be in your package manager, whether on Ubuntu and Debian, if you load up the KX Studio repos. And again, that'll be in the show notes if you want to do that on your Linux system. I found it extremely useful. And a lot of these configurations would not be possible without that. And we have Mumble to fit the screen here. And it allows you change the size and get everything on here. And if you on Mumble, you can text message. So that allows you to see the messages without having to worry about your mouse cursor. Now this also works with the mouse, which another video shows, but it's really handy using the serial port so that you can use your mouse and it doesn't have to be on this graphic right here, this picture, in order to key it. And I think we've pretty much covered everything to try to show you how to set up CWIRC on your Linux computer using the padsp command, using Jack Audio from Cadence. Let me show you my configuration here. So I'm using input as the Realtek, output Realtek, sample rate, buffer size, periods. That's about it. I'm not using Wine at all this time. This is all Linux without having to use the Wine system to bring in any Windows programs. There's what the engine looks like on mine. So we don't have this sound-a-loop daemon started. We're not using it. We're not using MIDI. We're just using the PulseAudio plugin. So I just started it and then start this, and it brings up this in CATIA, which is just the CWirc Jack audio connection bay, which is just very simple. And as you see, everything's loaded up, and it's easy to draw wires. Just left-click hold and put them where you want them. I have a bunch of stuff here, and still we're at 0x run, so I'm very happy with this setup. And with the accuracy and timing of CWirc, speed goes from 1 to 60. It has decoder if you wanted to check your CW. So once you dial it up, once it matches the words per minute, then you can test it. And see how your timing is on your gain. So that's one way to do that. If you wanted to have both the mouse, you just go into the keyer settings. Make sure that's all right. It has some auto character and some other stuff here. I used it in DAW memory on mode B. And here you can have both the mouse and the real key if you wanted to. And I'm just using the Realtek sound card. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching.